She was unaware that her world was about to be turned upside down when Clint Eastwood sat in her section. Mia glanced at the clock atop the diner's counter as she adjusted her apron. It was approaching 7 p.m., the time at which the dinner surge typically tapered off, allowing for a more leisurely pace to conclude her shift. The small diner situated off the highway was merely a temporary halt for the majority of travelers, providing them with a meal before they continued their journey. For Mia, it was her lifeline. At the age of 28, she successfully managed to raise her 6-year-old son, Jordan, while spending extended hours at her job. Each gratuity and paycheck were allocated to Jordan's expanding school supply list and the maintenance of their modest apartment. She moved gracefully from table to table, her pleasant smile serving as a protective barrier against the exhaustion that was gnawing at her. The regulars were aware of her narrative or portions of it. Mia never solicited sympathy. However, a few individuals would sneak an additional $1 or $2 when they could. She had acquired an early understanding that the world was unjust, and her sole option was to continue progressing. Mia's attention was drawn to the door by the chiming of the bell perched above it. She gazed upward, anticipating the arrival of another fatigued traveler. Instead, a man entered the room with a calm confidence that caused the air to feel heavier. His weathered visage was partially concealed by a hat that was pulled low, and he wore jeans and a simple button-up shirt. After a brief instant, she was able to identify him as soon as he glanced her way. Clint Eastwood. The Clint Eastwood. Her respiration was strained. She was not inclined to admire celebrities. She lacked the time and energy to do so. However, this was an exception. During their shared viewing of vintage westerns, her late father would discuss Clint Eastwood, who was a cultural icon. Memories of those moments briefly penetrated her consciousness. However, she was unable to dwell on them. Clint occupied a corner booth, and Mia recognized that it was her turn to serve him. However, this individual was not merely another client. His unassuming demeanor caused her pulse to accelerate. Mia approached the booth by grabbing her notepad and pen, taking a deep breath and stepping forward. She observed the subtle details as she approached the table. His hands, which were slightly weathered but remained steady, were lying on it. The piercing eyes that were situated beneath the brim of his headdress appeared to observe everything without revealing much. His expression was almost imperceptible as she halted beside him, and he glanced up. "Good evening," she began, her voice more composed than she had anticipated. "What can I begin for you?" He briefly examined the menu before depositing it aside. "I would like to order a burger and a cup of coffee. Medium rare. No scallions." Simple enough. Mia recorded the information. However, she was unable to disregard the slight tremor in her hand as she prepared to depart. She was halted by Clint's voice. "Is it a busy night?" he inquired. She returned to him in astonishment. The majority of customers did not engage in small conversation, unless they were regulars. She responded with a faint smile. "It's not too bad. Ensures that I remain alert." His expression marginally softened as he nodded. "Your pace is commendable. It is exceedingly challenging to remain informed in an environment such as this." She was uncertain about how to respond, and she blinked. Did he offer her a compliment? Clint Eastwood, a man she had only ever encountered in films, was observing her work ethic. She conveyed a courteous expression before retiring to the counter to submit his order. Nevertheless, her mind was buzzing with inquiries. What was his purpose in visiting this diminutive diner located off the highway? He could afford the most luxurious restaurants in California. However, he was here waiting for a burger like any other traveler, drinking water from a chipped glass. Mia transported the plate and coffee to his table once the order was prepared. She placed them with precision, and he gave her a fleeting grateful look. He expressed his gratitude in a straightforward manner. "You are most welcome," she replied, endeavoring to convey a casual demeanor. However, she was unable to shake the sensation that this moment, this routine interaction was somehow unique. She observed that he was not in a hurry to consume as she moved to serve other tables. He sat there, almost contemplative, occasionally drinking his coffee. However, what was the reason for the sensation that he was not merely present to consume food? She was unable to escape the sensation that this evening was anything but ordinary, as something about his presence lingered in the back of her mind. Although Mia maintained a bustling schedule, including the refilling of coffee cups, the clearing of tables, and the acceptance of new orders, she could not help but occasionally glance at Clint's booth. He consumed his food at a leisurely pace, almost methodically, as if he had an infinite amount of time. Occasionally, their gazes would intersect, and he would offer her a courteous nod, a silent acknowledgement that caused her stomach to flutter. Clint extended his hand in a subtle gesture to her after he had finished his meal. Mia approached, taking care to maintain a composed demeanor, wiping her hands on her apron. "Is everything okay?" she inquired with a calm tone. "It is flawless," he replied with a modest grin. "That was one of the most exceptional hamburgers I have consumed in an extended period." The compliment caught her off guard, and she faintly chuckled. "I will inform the cook. He will be grateful for that information." Clint was silent for a brief period. In the brief silence that ensued, it appeared as though he was conducting an in-depth examination of her, not in a judgmental manner, but with a kind of curiosity that made her feel exposed, yet curiously seen. He ultimately stated, "You exude a positive energy. You evoke memories of an individual I encountered many years ago." Mia was uncertain about how to respond, and she blinked. Was this intended as a compliment, a memory? She was unable to determine. Her cheeks warmed as she managed to say, "Well, thank you. I merely endeavor to navigate the day in the same manner as everyone else." He nodded, his eyes glistening with an enigmatic quality that she was unable to identify. "That is the key, is it not? I am merely surviving." He extracted a few dollars from his pocket before she could respond. He deposited them on the table, along with a folded piece of paper. He stood up and said, "Maintain the change, and please review this at your earliest convenience." Mia gazed at the note, her heart beating rapidly. She said, "Thank you," in a quiet voice, uncertain as to whether he had heard her. He disappeared in an instant, as the bell above the door jingled as he exited. She stood motionless by the booth for a brief period, gazing at the note as if it were capable of igniting her fingertips. What was it that he could have written, and what was the reason for his apparent determination to have her read it? However, the inquiries would have to be postponed. Even though her mind was racing with anticipation, Mia was not the type to leave her responsibilities unresolved, as there were still tables to serve. The diner had become more tranquil by the time Mia vacated Clint's booth. The final customers of the evening were either conversing quietly or enjoying their coffee. The room was filled with the background murmur of the jukebox. With trembling fingertips, she grasped the folded note and placed it in her apron pocket as she completed the table cleaning. She was uncertain as to the cause of her anxiety. It was merely a notation, correct? Mia sneaked into the back room to retrieve her belongings after her duty concluded. She eventually succumbed to her curiosity and meticulously unfolded the paper. Her respiration caught as she perused the initial few lines. "Dear Mia, although I am unfamiliar with you, I have observed a rare quality in the brief time I have been here: genuine resilience. Your ability to manage this location with grace, even in the face of adversity, serves as a reminder of the immense fortitude that exists in the everyday heroes of this world. You are reminiscent of an individual who is very dear to me, and who instilled in me the importance of hard work and compassion. Although I am unaware of your personal history, I can discern from your eyes that you have endured an abundance of adversity. Consequently, I am motivated to take action without any constraints." Mia's hands began to tremble as she continued to read. "I am leaving a small gesture for you to use as you see fit. Whether it is for your child, your future, or simply a moment of rest, I hope it brings you some peace. People like you deserve to be seen, and I see you." The check was enclosed within the note. Mia's pulse nearly stopped when she saw the sum of $10,000. Her knees buckled, and she sat down firmly on the bench in the back room, allowing tears to freely flow down her face. It was not solely the financial gain that was transformative, although it was. The words were the culprit. Acknowledgement. The sensation that an individual as accomplished and legendary as Clint Eastwood had taken the time to observe her and show concern. It was an overpowering experience for an individual who frequently experienced feelings of invisibility in the world. However, despite her efforts to comprehend the entirety of the situation, she was left with a single question: why her? And what was she going to do with this unexpected gift? Mia's mind was consumed by emotions as she sat in the rear room for an extended period of time. The check she held in her hands was surreal, as if it were drawn from a dream. She contemplated the bills that were piled high on her kitchen counter, the second-hand footwear that her son Jordan had been sporting for months, and the leaky faucet in their small apartment that she was unable to repair. This currency has the potential to undergo significant transformations. However, Clint's words remained in her mind, more than just the financial relief. You remind me of someone very dear to me. Who was that individual, and what was it that compelled Clint Eastwood, of all individuals, to recognize something in her? It was not merely the money or the note that affected her. It was the manner in which he regarded her, which was characterized by a sense of respect and acknowledgement that she had not experienced in years. Mia exhaled deeply and blotted away her tears. She was aware that she could not conceal this information, so she contacted her closest companion, Tasha, who had been her pillar of support during numerous adversities. Tasha was at the diner in a matter of minutes, occupying an unoccupied booth across from Mia. Tasha held up her palms as Mia handed her the note, saying, "Wait. You are informing me that Clint Eastwood left you this." Mia's eyes were still puffy from weeping as she nodded. "I am unsure of the reason. I did not engage in any unusual activities." Tasha silently perused the note, her pupils expanding with each word. She released a subdued whistle upon reaching the checkpoint. "Girl, this is insane. Do you realize the potential consequences for you and Jordan?" Mia's voice was scarcely audible as she said, "I am aware. However, it does not seem to be genuine. What is the reason for an individual of his caliber to be concerned about an individual such as myself?" Tasha reached across the table and grasped Mia's hands. "Because he observed you, Mia. He observed the same thing that I have constantly observed. There is no one I know who works harder than you, and you never allow life to break you. Individuals observe that type of fortitude." Mia gazed at the check, her heart heaving with gratitude and uncertainty. "What if I am not deserving of it? What if this is an error? What if this is an error? Tasha declared unequivocally, "It is not an error. You are entitled to it. The question is, what will you do with it?" However, that was the inquiry, wasn't it? Mia was unable to disregard the weight of this unexpected gift, or the responsibility that accompanied it, despite her desire to celebrate. Mia remained at her kitchen table for an extended period of time that evening. After Jordan had retired for the evening, she had the note and check in her possession. The small apartment was serene, with the exception of the occasional groan of the old pipes, and the faint flicker of the dim light above the table. Her thoughts were scattered in 1,000 different directions. This money could be used to pay Jordan's overdue rent, replace the unreliable automobile she was reliant on, and provide her with opportunities that she had only dreamed of until now. Although the prospects were thrilling, they also intimidated her. The 10th time she read Clint's words, she picked up the note again. "I trust that it will provide you with some solace. Individuals such as yourself deserve to be recognized, and I recognize you." These words resonated with her on a more profound level than she had anticipated. How many years had she spent attempting to maintain her financial stability by working double shifts and foregoing meals, so that Jordan could have an abundance? The number of times she had pushed herself to the verge of exhaustion was so numerous that she had lost track. Throughout it all, she had experienced a sense of invisibility, as if the world did not care whether she succeeded or not. However, Clint Eastwood had observed her. He had observed her resilience, determination, and struggle. In that instant, she came to the realization that the issue was not solely about the money. It was also about her conviction that she was deserving of something superior. Mia contemplated her father, who had consistently served as her staunchest advocate. He used to say, "Kid, don't let the world wear you down. You have a fire in you." Before he departed, she felt the fire flicker for the first time in years. She retrieved a notepad and commenced the process of jotting down ideas, activities that she could implement with the funds that would generate enduring change. It is possible that she could finally enroll in an accounting course, a profession that she had always aspired to, but had never had the opportunity to pursue due to limited time and resources. Perhaps she could establish a modest college fund for Jordan, providing him with the opportunity to pursue a more promising future. However, one notion persisted, resonating more than the others: the act of paying it forward. Clint's act of kindness had transformed her life, and she was unable to resist the notion of reciprocating the favor for another individual. Nevertheless, the ambiguity persisted. The path ahead appeared to be insurmountable, but for the first time in a long time, Mia permitted herself to harbor optimism. Jordan was observed playing with his action figures on the worn-out carpet, as Mia stood in the kitchen, drinking a cup of coffee, and the morning sunlight streamed through the window. The check and note were still on the table, but they were now meticulously folded. She had reached a conclusion after a night of insomnia and introspection. She initially contacted Tasha, who promptly extended an offer to supervise Jordan for the afternoon. Mia clarified that she required some time to resolve the matter, and Tasha refrained from posing any inquiries. She merely stated, "You are responsible for your actions, girl. I am by your side." Mia drove to the bank after Jordan had settled in comfortably at Tasha's residence. The check felt weighty in her purse, and its presence was almost too surreal to comprehend. The bank teller, a young woman with a bright expression, raised an eyebrow when she saw the amount. The teller expressed her curiosity in a courteous manner, stating, "That is a substantial deposit." Mia nodded and smiled slightly. "It is a gift." Mia felt a slight sense of relief as the teller refrained from pressing any further. She experienced a peculiar combination of emotions as the check cleared, including a sense of almost crushing responsibility, exhilaration, and relief. This money was not solely for her. It was an opportunity to rewrite her narrative and provide Jordan with a more fulfilling existence. Mia proceeded to a nearby community college, subsequent to her departure from the bank. For years she had passed by its campus, contemplating the sensation of returning to a classroom in order to learn and develop. She entered the building, her hands shaking as she approached the admissions desk. She was greeted by a woman with a kind expression. Additionally, she inquired as to how she could be of assistance. Mia expressed her desire to enroll, her voice remaining steady, in spite of the nervous flutter in her bosom. In the field of accounting, the woman's expression was amiable. "You are in the appropriate location. Let us commence." Mia experienced a sense of purpose that she had not experienced in years as she completed the documentation. This was no longer solely about her. It was about demonstrating to Jordan that it is never too late to pursue your aspirations, regardless of how improbable they may appear. However, Mia was struck by a new notion as she exited the admissions office. What if this was merely the beginning? What if Clint's act of kindness was not merely a one-time gift, but rather a catalyst for a much more significant flame? The changes in Mia's life were nothing short of transformative. As weeks transformed into months, she successfully managed her evening classes at the community college with her shifts at the diner. Although it was challenging, she found a newfound determination in her stride. Jordan also observed. Mia could not help but smile whenever he would proudly announce to his peers, "My mother is attending college." However, Mia's aspirations extended beyond her personal existence. She began allocating a portion of the funds to a small fund to assist others in her community, motivated by Clint's act. Whether it was a single parent who was struggling to buy groceries or a student who was unable to afford textbooks, Mia discreetly intervened, giving back in the manner that Clint's note had suggested. Jordan yanked at Mia's sleeve as she perused her accounting textbook at the kitchen table one evening. "Mom," he inquired, his large brown eyes shining with curiosity, "do you believe that man will ever return to the diner?" Mia paused, as the notion caught her off guard. Would Clint Eastwood ever make a comeback? She was unaware of his influence on her life, but it would remain with her indefinitely. Jordan's hair was gently ruffled as she tenderly said, "Maybe. Nevertheless, he will always be a component of our narrative, even if he does not." And that was the reality. Mia was reminded of the power of kindness by Clint's gesture, which reminded her to see others for who they are, and to elevate them up when the world felt heavy. It had rekindled her faith in her abilities,
the potential of life, and the significance of reinvesting in others. Mia experienced a tranquility that she had not experienced in years as she closed her textbook and prepared for bed that evening. She was not only surviving, but she was thriving, one step at a time for the first time. Her voyage was far from over. Therefore, the subsequent occasion that a stranger entered her section at the diner, Mia extended the same warmth and elegance in her greeting, cognizant that even the most inconsequential interactions could have a lasting impact on life. No matter how insignificant, each act of compassion has the capacity to generate consequences that extend far beyond our immediate perception. Please remember to subscribe and share this story with someone who could benefit from a little inspiration today.